Some of you may want a deeper understanding of run levels as they pertain to shutting down and rebooting the system, and there's a lot more that run levels are responsible for as well. So for you, I have created this video. You do not have to understand run levels in order to do most things on a CentOS server. However, I do think it's a good idea for you to at least understand the basics of run levels and what they are. And so I think this module will benefit everybody. But if you're lost or confused, please understand that you don't need to change the run level very often on a CentOS 7 system. You just won't need to in most settings. That's not to say that in other particular cases or jobs, whatnot, you might need to know more about it. So some people need to know more or less about run levels, but this module is just going to cover the basics, and this module is optional. It's just for those of you who want to learn more about run levels. So first of all, what is a run level? Well, it's a level at which your system is running, right? That makes sense. That's easy. I know you already guessed that. 0 is halt. So your system is at run level 0 when it's turned off. That's run level 0, halt. You can see here on the CentOS documentation that it says do not set init default to this. If you set init default to 0, then the default run level is going to be halt. It's pretty hard to power on a system, and keep a system on anyway, whose run level is by default 0 or halt. So you don't want to do that. Don't make that mistake. Run level 1 is what's called single user mode. You can guess what that does. Okay, it doesn't allow other users to be logged in. Run level 2 is multi-user mode without networking. So if you're familiar with Windows troubleshooting, then you know that you can boot into Windows in safe mode with or without networking. Here you can get into multi-user mode, which is going to be your standard mode. Multi-user mode is going to be the normal run level environment with networking, but run level 2 is going to be multi-user mode without networking. So run level 3 is going to be your full multi-user mode. That's going to be your default run level if you don't have a graphical user interface. Run level 4 is going to either be unused, or the administrator might use run level 4 to specify a particular type of environment that they would like. Run level 5 is going to be the default run level for servers with a graphical user interface. If they're using the X server, if they're using X11, then run level 5 is going to be the default run level. And if you're running a CentOS server that has a graphical user interface, you can log in using run level 3 in order to bypass that graphical user interface. And remember, run level 3 is full multi-user mode. It's a normal standard run level. The only difference there is that you won't have your graphical user interface. Finally, run level 6 is going to be reboot. Okay? Again, as with halt, do not set your init default to 6, or else your system is caught in this infinite loop of rebooting when you're trying to power it on and get into a different run level. Now, moving to our server, if you want to change run levels, you can do that by issuing the command tell init. I'm telling it to you. If we open up the manual page for tell init, you can see that tell init can be used to change the system run level. Okay? Now it says here, since the concept of System 5 run levels is obsolete, the run level request will be transparently translated into systemd unit activation requests. You know what that basically says? You don't need to be using tell init. Okay, you really don't. But again, understanding how the system works, how the server works, can be very beneficial. So let's go ahead and play around here and just maybe break our system a little bit, because I'm running my system in a virtual box here. And so, listen, if you were to do tell init 0, oh, and by the way, you're going to have root privileges for that. If I were to issue sudo tell init 0, I would risk damaging my system. I would literally be slamming the system into a halt state. But you know what? I'm running in a virtual box environment, and so I'm going to do it. Okay? Now, I just slammed this system into run level 0. Do you want to do this with company equipment? Absolutely not. So what I just showed you, it's one of those, I'm showing it to you so you don't do it. If anybody's ever like, oh, just, telling it 0, that's how I learned how to shut down a system. No. Do not do that. So that's, slamming this thing into a halt state. Obviously, I could do sudo telnet 6 in order to reboot, but friends, you don't want to do that. You want to reboot using the shutdown command and then the R option, and then specify a time, or if you're in a hurry, you can simply reboot now. That is how you reboot. This is not how you reboot, okay? It produces a reboot, but it's not a graceful reboot, and you risk damaging the system. It's not good. Now, we can bring the system into a different type of run level where it's still going to be online. If we don't want to halt, if we don't want to reboot, we can do sudo telnet. Let's do telnet 1. This is what's called single user mode. Now, in single user mode, we're automatically brought into CentOS. Well, CentOS calls it the rescue mode, and that's what it's used for. Again, if you're familiar with Windows, this is like safe mode. Other users are not going to be allowed to use the system because you are in single user mode. So, right, you can't have multiple users on in single user mode. Now, what I did there is I went ahead and got out of it with Control D because I didn't need to be in rescue mode. But if you're in rescue mode there are certain system operations you may need to utilize, operations you would need to perform without other users logged in, and that's why single user mode exists, okay? That's the reason that you have single user mode. If you'll remember, run level 4 by default is just not going to be anything that you need to use, okay? And if we do run level 5, we don't have a graphical user interface on our system, and so guess what? Doesn't really do anything, does it? Okay? Now, if you want to find out exactly what run level you're currently in, you can issue who and then the R option in order to find the current run level. And you can see here that I'm in run level 5. I don't have a graphical user interface installed here. So there's not going to be any difference for me between run level 3 and run level 5. But just so you can see that we're actually doing stuff here, you can now see using who and then the R option that we're now in run level 3, which is multi-user mode by default. Run level 2, multi-user mode without any networking. Let me bring these back up for you here. 0 is halt, 1 is single user mode, 2 is multi-user without networking, 3 is full multi-user mode, which is the standard for the type of CentOS server that we have without a graphical user interface. 4 is unused, or the administrator can specify what happens in run level 4. And run level 5 is the default run level if you have a graphical user interface on your CentOS server. Finally, run level 6 is reboot. Those are the basics of run levels. If for some reason you would like to by default boot into a different run level, you can see that information here. You can edit, etc. in it tab. Please be careful with this and make sure that you don't use run level 0 or 6. You will break your system doing that. That's one of the joys of working in a virtual environment And so if you are like me and you are using VirtualBox in order to virtualize CentOS, you might want to do that just to make a broken system for fun. But at the same time, you'll still have to fix it, even in a VirtualBox environment. But I always say better to break it in a virtual environment than to break it when the company's paying for it. So thanks for watching this video. Remember that it was completely optional. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't let it confuse you, because run levels are really just not something that you're going to need to change or to do much with in the beginning working with these CentOS servers. In fact, I know guys who work on these servers and they really don't know the difference between any of the run levels. So this is just extra information for you, because I know that a lot of you are really going above and beyond with your education. You want to learn more, and so I want to give you that information. If you have any questions about run levels, shutting down, reboots, make sure to post a discussion board question here in the course, and I'll get back in touch with you.